I'm Coffee Kevin, and it's Tuesday, and it is a beautiful Tuesday. It's a sunny day here in the Midwest, and I just wanted to say that one of the most frustrating things I think in drip brewing, and these are two drip brewers that I really like quite a bit, is changing batch sizes, and by that I mean, let's say. Usually brew 6 cups of coffee in a drip machine. And you say, you know what? I just want to make a cup of coffee or two. And I really don't need 6 cups. So what you either end up doing is wasting a lot of coffee. And I'm certainly against waste. And I'm for good environmental use of our products. And the other thing that happens is we brew less and it doesn't taste the same. It happens all the time, and I hear reports of it from many people, and there's a reason for this. The reason is if you use a French press and you cut your measurement in half of your water and your coffee, you still get approximately the same results. Well, that's not true with drip. The reason it's not true is because part of what brings strength to your coffee is the extraction process is how long it is. When you cut your measurements in half, you cut the drip time in half, and that cuts the contact time between the hot water and the coffee in half. That means you're not getting the same amount of flavor at all. So there are some ways of looking at this, and I think I found a pretty good strategy for dealing with it, and I'm going to share it with you today. But first, I'm going to play a clip, again, at Coffee Fest earlier this month in Indianapolis. I met two people, Kelsey and Adam, and they had a company, Circadian Coffee, and Circadian Coffee has a pretty interesting philosophy that involves using a lot of blends. They blend quite a bit. That's how I was actually on a blend kick when I went there, but there's a synergy thinking about something that you'll run into someone who's also thinking about it too. It's kind of one of those little fun surprises in life. So I had a nice conversation with them. It's actually a little longer than usual, but it's fun, and what they are, they're certainly, to me, an example of a couple of people who are in specialty coffee now, have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of opinions too. I'm not sure they're unfounded. I'm not sure they're actually 100% accurate either, but they're very interesting. And here we are. So when we'll come back, we'll make a couple of cups of coffee, and I'll show you more of my theory. But meanwhile, let's talk with Kelsey and Adam. With Adam, and I'm with Kelsey. And fortunately, they're wearing their name tags, so it sounds like I'm really together today. Yeah, thank you. And they got this, and they are from Circadian? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Circadian Coffee.
What the heck? Where did you get that? I'm going to assume, Kelsey, where'd you came up with that name?
It was me, actually.
Oh, no. Where'd it come from?
So I have a degree in psychology. That's my background. And circadian rhythms has always been, it's just your life cycle, the 24-hour days that you live your life, or 24 hours a day that you live your life. Yeah. Coffee is a big part of that for me and for a lot of people, where it really kickstarts my morning and the whole ritual of the whole thing, not just the caffeine of the coffee, but just waking up and brewing it, and that really adds to that rhythm of your life. So Circadian Coffee.
Oh, so circadian. For some reason, I thought you meant something about crickets or something. I don't know why.
A lot like cicadas, the cicadas. People like that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, anyway. All right. Well, now that went nowhere. Hey, we started talking about blends though, and I just did a segment on blends, and I thought it was interesting. You guys you specialize in blends.
Yeah, so we have our 3 signature blends, a light, medium, and a dark roast, and then we'll do holiday blends throughout. We love working with blends because it's this opportunity to actually be really creative with coffee. We love single origins. We love seeing what the farmer can do and what the growing regions can do and things like that. But at the end of the day, all I can do with a single origin is ruin it. I can't really make it better. I can only bring it like this is what it can be, and this is how I can make it worse. But with a blend, it's really this opportunity to like, what can I make a coffee taste like that it may not normally taste like? Or what can I do to have something that's really consistent and you can always have the coffee that tastes like this, as opposed to like, well, last year this co-op produced a coffee that tastes like, you know, peaches, and this year it tastes like raspberries or something like that. So there's a lot of creativity that you get to have when you're producing blends and thinking through how does this coffee taste with this coffee now, and how does it taste with this coffee in a week from now, and you know, things like that. So I don't know, they're just fun. They're a lot more fun to me.
Okay, now give me an example. Give me an example of some blends that you have that you guys specialize in.
So we always have our signature blends, our light, medium, and dark roast. Solstice, Meridian, and Equinox are the name of those. And those are what we call daily drinkers. They're just designed to be really pleasant tasting coffees. The light roast is a little like dried floral, dried fruit, so it's a little sweet, a little tart, has all that complexity to it. Meridian is like classic caramelly, earthy coffee. And then Equinox is our dark roast, very dark, chocolatey, has all those, I'm trying to think of the word, like just earthy notes to it that you want in like a dark roast, but not bitter. And then we get to have like some kind of crazy stuff. Like our cold brew right now is a combination of an India, a Nicaragua, and a Laos coffee, which is just the wildest combination of things, and took me forever to dial in exactly how they need to be. But you get this really beautiful sweetness up front, and then like this orange blossom right in the middle, and then this big chocolate finish that just kind of leaves this really nice taste in your mouth. That only comes about with those 3 coffees. If you switch them all out, if you roast them a little bit differently, you get completely different set of flavor notes in them. So
it's a combination of the varietals you use, combination of that and how you roast them.
Yeah, exactly. So like the Laos coffee in that cold brew, if you take it too far to like the medium, it gets this really like dank flavor or smell to it. Like it almost smells like marijuana, which isn't.
How would I know what that smells like?
I know you don't, but. So I mean, you get this really like off note to it if you take it to like within this weird medium range. But if you back it off enough, it has all of that like boldness that you find in a medium roast, but it's a light roast. So it's this really interesting problem of how do I make this coffee taste the way I want it to, and make sure that it always stays in this range and doesn't get that off flavor that I know is coming, or drop it too soon or whatever. So
now, let me ask a question. I mean, are these all Arabicas?
Yeah. They're all Arabicas. I've tried to play with Robustas, and I've not had very good results with it. I've only done it a little bit. I'm trying to, like, a handful of times.
I feel like we got an India at some point and another origin.
Might have been Brazil.
Yeah, perhaps in Brazil. And it almost had like an ashy quality to it that we just couldn't really roast out of it. And so we were like, well, maybe it's just like a weird like origin that we picked or something. But
I knew had a friend who, Ken Stevenson, who was a roaster in, well, he's Australian. He used to be in Denver, but he moved to Melbourne. But he really liked Philippine Robustas.
I don't think we've tried it. Yeah, I don't think we've tried anything from the Philippines at all. I guess we tried, no, it was from Vietnam maybe.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
I think it was Vietnam. So
yeah.
it was a...
Yeah, I don't know. We keep seeing like importers are trying to find like specialty Robustas, and we try them out. We've just never had anyone that were like, yeah, this is going to be perfect for this, or but it's one of those things, like, I'm sure it'll eventually come up.
Well, from the marketing perspective, I mean, I think you're right on, because I think certainly consumers and most of the specialty industry in the U.S. certainly considers Robustas not the greatest coffee.
Well, and I mean, that's even like, like the big like Maxwell House and Folgers and McDonald's brand, like their whole thing is it's 100% Arabica, and it's like, yeah, that's standard.
Well, they got to say something about it.
Exactly. Or my favorite, Folgers.
Fire roasted.
Oh yeah, Folgers recently put out something that said fire roasted, and I'm like, how? What? Like, so you're not doing an electric roast? Like, I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. Or like 15 years ago, Folgers put out it's my favorite marketing campaign because they said that all of their coffee was hand-picked. And I was like, yeah, it's hand-picked. That's how you pick coffee. Like,
There are tree shakers. There are tree shakers. Well, probably not in most places, but there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what they're saying. I mean, it's, of course, this gets into marketing stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. It's amazing. Yeah. But because of that, like,
you like marketing?
Well, like I love what people can do with it, where it's just like, a lot of consumers are like learning more about coffee, so it's a little bit harder to trick some of them. But like the wording that some people come up with, it's amazing. Where you're like, oh, it's steel cut, and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, grinders have like steel blades, like it's all steel cut.
Right.
So it was like, that's tricky, but like I love it.
And even things like, I know one of the big complaints about companies like Starbucks is they take terms that we as like coffee people know, and then they kind of turn it into something else. Like, you get a caramel macchiato from Starbucks, it's an upside down latte, which is, fine, you can do that, whatever. But they do it in this way where they almost make like even people who know things about coffee like walk in and they're like, wait, do I actually know something about coffee, or am I wrong, or are you wrong? And it's like,
they're getting a little better. I had a pretty good macchiato at a Starbucks about a month ago, and it was a real macchiato, but I had to tell them I don't want the caramely thing. And,
right.
Yeah, but I know
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's funny to see kind of marketing things where you're like, they'll even do things in a way that like they phrase it and you're like, wait a minute, am I wrong about this? Like, I'm a professional in this, but am I wrong, or am I?
That's why all these terms, frankly, should have been trademarked a long time ago to protect them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do now.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have these amazing conversations about what a flat white is, and
Okay,
I
so.
still don't.
Flat white.
Yeah, I was like, I worked for a company that like they specialize in Australian style drinks, and I was like, to this day, I still don't really know that we were doing it right.
Toby's?
No, we worked for Flat Black in Boston.
Okay.
That's where we met, actually. But like, so like they had their way of doing it, but it's like obviously if you haven't been to Australia, like, are you doing it right? I don't know. Like, so I still don't know. Like, I don't know how to explain it to people sometimes. I'm like, yeah, it's like microfoam, but like less micro. Like, it's a whole thing.
So what's the interesting? You're both from Boston?
No, I'm from Maryland. We just
both
got hired for jobs up in Boston.
Yeah. I'm from Indiana. So.
You're from Indiana.
Yeah.
And is the coffee culture? What's the coffee scene like here?
It's growing. Is how I'd say it. There's even from like we've been in operation about 3 years now, and it's grown a lot since then. You're seeing a lot more people who are more particular. They're growing accustomed to like, I want this type of bean, or I want my coffee to taste this way. And even just acknowledging that I can have my coffee taste a certain way is a really big thing. But it's also been kind of interesting to see, like, we were on the coast, we had seen nitro coffee really kind of come and go in a way. And we get here and like people are like, oh yeah, like nitro coffee, that's like a new thing, right? And it's like, well, it's been around for about 8 years. Like it's not that new.
Yeah.
But the beauty of that is all of the like infrastructure that the coast created, like it's in place. So when they first started nitro on the coast, they were doing like beer gas and things like that, and it was not good because like CO2 in coffee isn't a great thing. So there's this really cool like when trends like that finally get here, it's a lot more nuanced and it's a lot better kind of from the get-go than when someone was like, I have this idea and we're going to do this, and it's like, it's horrible, but like we can find something good in it, So yeah, it's definitely growing a lot. We're seeing a lot more demand, and we're seeing a lot more particularities in people.
Now, a few years ago, third wave was hitting really big in like most of the large cities, and then roasters that were out in the, well, I'll call the hinterlands, and I'm not saying that Indianapolis is, but I'm saying that in the in more rural areas were telling me, yeah, we're still a lot of pressure for us to do dark roasts. Yeah. Is that still the case?
It's definitely true. Like a lot of people like dark roast, but I mean, even in Boston where we met, if you didn't do a dark roast well, you were dead in the water. So it's not just a matter of like where we are, people like dark roast. It's just there are parts of the country where people like darker roasted coffee. They like more of the caramelly. And I really respect that in a lot of ways, because if you think about it, like coffees that taste like raspberries or blueberries or whatever are really interesting. They don't always taste that great with a blueberry muffin though. And so like if you have this coffee that, even if it's not a dark roast, like a medium roast or something, it's just more caramelly and earthy, that goes well with that food, then it kind of makes sense that like you'd gravitate towards that, because it's not a aesthetic drink like wine where it's like, I'm just drinking it because I like this. It's, drinking because I want the caffeine in the morning. I want it to taste good, and it needs to taste good with this thing that I'm eating for breakfast. So, which is really like one of the reasons we like blends a lot too, because we can kind of hit that target really easily and just over and over and over again. Like we have this coffee. You don't need to come to me and be like, do you have a Mexico? It's like, well, I have one that tastes like a Mexico, and it'll always taste like a Mexico, whatever you're thinking that is.
Right. I definitely, I favor roast diversity. I mean, I like the idea that there's, I don't even like the idea that people just are limited to one type of, this is the only roast I would allow, and sometimes roasts, I like light roasts a lot, but sometimes roasts, it's too light for the coffee or the method, the brewing method.
And that's really the thing, is when people say, I like dark roast, they're not saying I like coffee that's been roasted to this level. They're saying I like coffee that has like that dark chocolatey, maybe a little bitter, caramelly, like that maltiness. Like they're saying they like something about the quality of dark roast, not that they like coffee roasted to this level. And that's really like the thing that we're really seeing kind of overcome. The specialty coffee becomes a big thing. So, hey.
So what are your you've got like a medium, a light, and a dark.
Yeah.
Are they all the same, pretty much the same coffees and just roasted differently?
No. So the Solstice is a Central South American and Indian blend. So it's El Salvador, Brazil, and India. The Meridian is a Brazil, India, and Colombia. And then the Equinox is a Laos, Brazil, and I have another coffee in it. Maybe El Salvador. There could be El Salvador in that. Yeah, I have it written down somewhere.
It's been a long week.
Yeah. But and it's always changing, because we're moving through different coffees and things like that. So they're different beans, and we definitely we'll try to buy beans that will be able to be used in multiple blends. Like Brazil's are really solid bases for coffees, especially blends. But then we'll find things like we have this Laos coffee that's just it's a great coffee, but it does not work as a medium. So it's like if I put it in our Meridian, that like marijuana note just takes over everything. So it's like I can't put it in.
There are a lot of people, I can see them out there right now. I'm going to get a lot of that. I guarantee you, if we grind it right.
Yeah, but it's
There's definitely a market for it, yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you find like you get coffees and you're like, well, this would be perfect for all of them or whatever, and then you roast it to that level or in that range, and you're like, this isn't gonna work. Like this is gonna put an off flavor into that blend. So then you got to figure out, well, does it work in the other ones? Am I just gonna have to, am I taking a loss on this coffee now, or whatever? So, oh yeah.
Got any good Indonesians coming in?
We haven't really nailed down what we're getting next, so we're still looking for some new stuff. I know there's a lot of really good Ethiopians out there right now, so that's kind of been what people are pushing our way. Yeah, Rwanda. But yeah, Indonesian coffees. We haven't had anyone really reach out to us with those yet. So
I really like a good Sumatra coffee.
Yeah, Sumatra is one of my favorites. It's kind of hard to find one in the Midwest just because they typically ship to the West Coast. So it's kind of hard to get them out here just because the importers usually push them all out to the West Coast. That and like Balinese coffee all goes out there. So it's a little bit harder to get, but yeah.
I like those. And so, okay, well that's good. I might try to do an on-air comparison, or try your various coffees, because I think it's interesting. We got started yesterday talking about the blending being a lost art. I made this statement that I make a lot, and I noticed you were doing some blends, so I was impressed.
Yeah, like I said, we really love playing with blends. It's just so much more interesting. Like it's almost like, and I keep using this cooking metaphor simile for it. I guess it's simile, like or as. So it's a lot like cooking, where it's like I can have this one ingredient and I can try to make that ingredient taste as good as it possibly can on its own, and it will only ever be as good as the grower made it. But if I'm making like a carrot, if I'm serving you a carrot, I can only cook it, I can only do whatever. But if I'm making carrot soup, I can add a lot of other things to it, and you can have a carrot that almost tastes more like a pumpkin or more like a gourd, the sweetness and all this. So
you can like elevate a single element into something better, like more, I guess, creative, intense, nuanced, or you can just have that singular thing. And so that's kind of like we saw like a functional need for blends, but also like there's this creative side where it can still like kind of fit the coffee snobs, whereas like there is so much nuance in the coffees, even the blends. Like you can taste it individually, taste it once it cools down, you can get all that nuance, but it's our opportunity to kind of elevate these singular things that taste great on their own, but like it's just a cooler experience, better experience, and it's something that we can replicate, so it's just a fun opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, Kelsey and Adam, thank you very much for talking to our audience today. Eating roasters, I've met so many, and it's always just touches me how strong their convictions are, and things that. There's a philosophy that drives so many, other than the obvious one of wanting to own a business of their own and make money. And those are certainly understandable goals. I should have had them more often, but they definitely touch my heart. Okay, we've got the water warmed up. Fortunately, it was a long clip. I had plenty of time to warm the water up. I'm using identical brewers really here, and I could have done this with one brewer, but I'm showing off that I own two. These are Chemex Pints, which is a great coffee maker, by the way, and an interesting one because Dr. Schlumbaum created he took his device, which frankly is just about the same height, the 6-cup, and he made it into a 2-cup by just going, thinner. He did a liposuction on it, and an engineering or design liposuction, and made a thinner coffee maker. And I think his thinking was it would keep the bed depth the same, so it would be the same distance, so it would somehow work out, but it really doesn't work out. It goes through faster. I've never figured out why. So if anyone knows, feel free to tell us. But meanwhile, I have a problem with this. It takes 27 grams to make coffee, okay? Let's make this as simple as I can. And to make coffee, it makes 3 cups. 3 good size cups, 6-ounce cups. Well, what happens? I found I had 20 grams of coffee one day, and I can only make 2 cups. Well, this is just about the smallest coffee maker I have. I guess I could have used an AeroPress, but it's good for this program, this episode, that I didn't think of that, because I thought, well, I've got to be able to figure out a way to make 2 cups in this coffee maker. And I said, well, what am I going to do? Because I'm going to just bring the bed depth down. This is comparing this brewer to this brewer. So that's not going to work. So here's what I did. I took my 20 grams. Normally I have 27 grams of coffee. And I took my 20 grams of coffee and went a notch finer on my grinder. The notch finer does 2 things. The notch finer slows down the flow through it, and that way it prolongs the contact time. Second of all, it exposes the ground area a little bit so that even if it only slows it down a little bit, it also exposes the surface area of the water coming in contact with the grounds. So that combination, I feel, achieved an equivalent strength coffee with both brewers. So what I'm going to do today is make 2 cups of coffee, and what I'm going to do is I'll do the, this is the smaller one. This is going to be the 20 grams. And the other one I'm not even going to use a scale for because I know where to stop on that one. And that's going to be the usual 3 cups. And what we'll get a chance to see if they're even close. And they don't have to be identical as far as drip time, because this the smaller batch may be done faster, but it's, again, we're exposing more surface area. The most important thing, and I'm only going to be able to tell if I achieved it or not, is they'll taste equivalent. And so let's see. Let's get this in. I'm brewing at 198 degrees, which I think is a real good brewing temperature. And I just think it's fun to do this and try it. And Circadian Coffee, Solstice, Light Roast, these guys have got all the right buzzwords here. Circadian, again, it's nothing to do with crickets, cicadas, or whatever they are. And Solstice, Light Roast, bright milk chocolate, toffee, floral tones, Indonesian, Central, and South American blend. Yeah. Interesting. They're using Laotian coffee. I haven't, I don't know that I've ever had that coffee before this. All right. And the way I brew with the Chemex is, I've seen some clips too with people, all sorts of really exacting rules about it. I probably not quite as exact or fastidious. I'm convinced that kind of misses the point of the Chemex. Not that I don't want to see it done in a way that creates a good tasting cup of coffee. And if I have to become a compulsive nutcase in order to make a good tasting cup of coffee, well, I will, but I'm not convinced you do. I'm not drinking coffee, I'm drinking water with this glass. In fact, I'm getting some more. Pardon me. I just have been here we are. It's time. One of the reasons that I will do more pours is because that's pretty close. One of the reasons I will do more pours is because I'm convinced that Dr. Schlumbaum is, oh, there we are. His advice was always to keep the coffee, the water level just above the grounds bed. Here we go. Later in the brew, I think it's okay to put it a little higher. And actually, that is just where I want it. that's where that should be. And in a way, I'm cheating because I know I usually go by the mark. I'm not going to teach you that because I think it's too confusing. I started explaining it to Pat one day, and she said, "Don't tell anyone that method. That's just too confusing for people." It's very easy for me. I just look at it as a finger above or a finger below the little bump there. But all right. And that one's done. So it did finish earlier, although it's got a thinner but it's got a more surface area. So again, I think you'll find they're fairly equivalent, but we'll see. You know, I don't always hit it right, especially if I'm doing something live on something as important as Facebook. So let's see. Here we go. I'm going to say that's going to be close to done. So you see, we can get by with less contact time here because of the finer grind. An example of that is, of course, espresso, where it's a super fine grind, and it's 30 seconds. All right. Here we go. Well, this one's ready. And actually, take a look at the overhead shot. Mike, can we grab the overhead shot? Because that's, there we go. Look at that. There we are. There we are. That's what I'm showing. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And you can see that's, if you can see into there, I'm beginning to think we need an overhead light too. Thanks, yeah. Focus up. There. Yeah, it is real smooth. It came up really nice. And anyway, that's that. And then let's see what this one came out. Yeah, okay. All right, and then this one. All right, and then this is our 3 cups, and this is our 2 cups. So, let me have a little taste of this, and what I'll do is have a taste of the smaller batch one and see what I think. Did I succeed? Okay, this is my regular Chemex. That's a nice smooth blend. And then let's try this. This is from the 2-cup version. Would it work? Would it fool me into thinking I had my regular Chemex? Honestly, it's, to my taste, virtually identical. And again, don't be put off by the fact that it was done sooner. We changed the game a little bit so that it's, but the important thing in the end is the strength of the cup and the ability to extract the taste that you want from your coffee. I hope this is useful, but honestly, I think it's one of the more practical episodes we've had, because I think a big part of confusion in coffee makers Again, a lot of waste happens because people just say, well, I'll brew a whole pot of coffee because, unless you're the type of person that really does go through a pot of coffee, well, that's fine. But if you're not, you're throwing away money and throwing away product. And, my opinion, that's just not a good combination. The other thing is, of course, from the word go, get a coffee maker that suits your needs. If you're a person who brews 1 cup at a time, there's no reason to get a 12-cup brewer. The 12-cup brewer is for making 12 cups, and so if you really want to, this is a good thing to learn. And I think learning to play with drip coffee makers, and again, drip is specifically. There are other factors, too, that may mean that different batch sizes in all brewers may be slightly different, but drip is the most dramatic, and there's a very good reason involving math for this, and that is the fact that more coffee, more water takes more time. In brewing a larger batch, the greater amount of water traveling through a greater bed depth is going to create a stronger cup of coffee. But how do you compensate for the weak coffee? Well, grind finer is the simple answer, and then you have to play with it because it isn't just a question of time anymore. So that is really it for that. I hope that was helpful. If you're more confused, don't be concerned. I was confused for a long time trying to figure this one out. But I've come to a point in life where I'm pretty confident, usually with coffee brewers, being able to make multiple batch sizes. There are other methods too, and we'll talk about those in future episodes of dealing with it. But this is the one that works most organically, and it works with any of the pour over drip, whether it's a V60 or a Melita pour over. They all work the same way, and you can make that happen. And in fact, frankly, automatic drip makers do too as well. I am Coffee Kevin. There's an update too on CoffeeCon's funding. We've had a whole week of it, and we've learned a lot. And over the weekend, we made some changes. Please visit our Indiegogo. Just go to Indiegogo and put CoffeeCon in. You don't have to use a hyphen, just CoffeeCon. And then take a look and see what we've done. We've updated the program. We've actually increased what we're giving people. And anybody who gave before this point, too, we were upgrading them. But we just had some discussions, thought about what we could do even to sweeten it more. Meanwhile, I just had Matt Bradshaw from Do LA reached out to me today and said that they're going to help us promote in LA because they want LA's show to be the first. They want to definitely make sure we're in LA next year, and well, we do too. So we're for all of them. We're rooting for every city. But go there and be sure to vote. And there's more on the website about that. I want to be careful because I don't want to get my business partner mad at me because I'm not the most exact person sometimes. So I better off to go there and read about it. Feel free to contact us with questions. And we're updating the video. I'll show you the video when it's done being edited. Well, if it's ever done. I don't know if we ever really finish anything. We just abandon it. But on Thursday, I'll show you the latest iteration, let's put it that way. Meanwhile, thank you for joining us today. I hope we had a fun time, and I'll talk to you soon. I'm Coffee Kevin.